Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to give my first entry in Book Trek 2024, The Wrath of the Summer of Trek. I know it's May 31st. It's a day early. Book Trek starts tomorrow in June, and then will extend July through August. But I read this book about a week ago now, and I want to talk about it. So my first book is Star Trek number 63, Shell Game, by Melissa Crandall. And this is one of the numbered books. Obviously, with a lot of the original series, most of the original series books, as far as I can tell, are numbered books. In the 80s and 90s, pocket books had numbered Star Trek books that, they had numbered books of the original series, Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine. And I also mentioned in my last video that I have read Trek books before. I have had some trouble with it. I previously tried to work my way through some of the relaunch novels, starting with Deep Space Nine, and my goal is to work my way towards the Star Trek Destiny trilogy about the Borg. And I kind of, I read 5 novels in one big, thick anthology volume, and then I just kind of crashed and burned after that. I just couldn't continue. I got a little burnt out on it. I've also read some other numbered original series books. Well, some of them are numbered, some of them are not of the numbered series. That doesn't really matter. But Spock's World and The Final Reflection are 2 that I have read. And I mentioned that I had a little bit of trouble with them. Some of the things I had trouble with were, if you see elements in the books that you wouldn't see on the series, of the television series that is of course limited by a budget. And even with a book, you can do whatever you want. You can have Starfleet officers that are, wildly different aliens than what you see on the show, and maybe even non-humanoid. And while that's interesting, it might take me out of it a little bit, because we don't see that on the show. The other aspect that I didn't really like with some very popular books is that they will deal with maybe young Kirk or young Spock, or we're going to see the first adventure, and that's fine. But I think what I'm looking for with Trek books is, maybe not a big complex web, big huge series with interconnected multiple series that all intertwine like the relaunch books. And I don't want the young Kirk, young Spock, the adventure that they don't show you on the show. I just want to see something that you might see on a television series. I want to see another episode. And that's what I found, I think, with this. And the first thing you'll notice is on the cover, yes, this is more or less, I think, the Wrath of Khan era. And there are some elements in the book that you do have to just get over and not question. Kirk, it's mentioned that Kirk has left the Admiralty. But at this point, shouldn't he still be an admiral? Of course, he's the captain of the ship, so they would, I guess, presumably, they'd still call him captain. I don't know what actually happens in the real Navy. Would you ever have an admiral that's in command of a vessel directly? I don't know. I know someone in the Navy. I should ask him. I should have asked him before this video. Anyway, so he's called captain. Mr. Spock, at this point, isn't he a captain as well? Is he still a commander? The book just does not mention his rank. He's always just Mr. Spock. So these are elements that are not important. It doesn't matter. Just get over it. Don't think about it too much, and then you'll enjoy it. The first aspect of this that I enjoyed. So this is about a Romulan space station. Something goes wrong on it, and it drifts out of Romulan space across the neutral zone into Federation space, and it's just adrift. And of course, the Enterprise is nearby, and they're going to go investigate. They send an away mission: Spock, McCoy, Chekhov, and a few other security officer ensigns. And we spend a lot of time in McCoy's head. It's kind of spooky. It's kind of a horror Star Trek novel, and I think it does it decently well. If you like horror novels and you like Star Trek, check this out. It's not going to blow your mind. It's not going to be the best science fiction you've ever read, but you're probably going to enjoy it. And that brings me to, I mentioned McCoy. We spend a lot of time in his head. And that brings me to another aspect of the book that I thought was very well done, and that's the characterizations and the writing of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. They seem like the characters from the show. Scotty as well. Scotty has a few scenes, and he seems like Scotty. When you read his dialogue, that seems like Scotty. I will say, and this is a very minor complaint, Chekhov is, as I mentioned, is a part of the away mission, so he has a lot of screen time, and he doesn't really seem like Chekhov to me. What is who is Chekhov? And I mentioned in my last video the side characters in the original series. Uhura, Scotty, Chekhov, they don't get as much screen time, not as much as devoted to their characters as compared to, say, the Next Generation. I mentioned in my last video, Beverly Crusher, she'll get an episode and she's the main character, and you'll learn something about her character. You don't get that with the original series. So who is Chekhov? To me, he's three traits. He's young, he's Russian, and he's a bit of the comedic relief in the show, or in the episodes where he's featured. He's not even in the first season, but he's not in every episode of season 2 and 3. And we don't really get that in the book. I'm not asking for stereotypes, but he just doesn't seem Russian. I mean, Crandall mentions she keeps throwing out there that he's Russian to remind the reader that yes, this is Chekhov. But you don't really get it from the dialogue. He's obviously not young anymore. He's now Lieutenant Chekhov in the show. Unless I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he was an ensign. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But he's not young. He's the security officer. He's in a position of authority. So he does not really seem like his character. That's a minor complaint. I'm nitpicking. It doesn't matter. It's fine. I mean, McCoy seems like McCoy. We spent a lot of time in his head. Spock is Spock. Kirk seems like Kirk. Except that he's not on the away mission, and they kind of they shine a light on that. And Kirk thinks to himself, "Man, I'm not on the away mission. This is never going to catch on." Of course, referring to Next Generation, which was airing. This is, I think, written in 93. This is well into the Next Generation television series, and of course, famously, Picard always sends number 1 on the away missions. He never goes, so it's shining a light on that. It was funny when I read it. At the end of the novel, this is not a spoiler. I mean, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but it's written on the back of the book. It's a Romulan space vessel, so of course the Romulans are going to show up, and there will be a little bit of a confrontation between the Romulan captain and Kirk on the Enterprise. And this brings us to another aspect of the book that I thought was well done and was very Star Trek. You're going to see the way Starfleet and Federation approach strange new life and the way the Romulans approach it. Obviously, something has caused disaster to strike the space station and has done something bad to its crew. It is not a surprise that in a Star Trek novel you will encounter some strange new life, and it might not be the most. Maybe it's not the most interesting. Maybe it's not the most mind-blowing, strange new life you might see. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty good, but it is an aspect of the show that's important, seeking out new life forms, and it's an aspect that I love about Star Trek. And I mentioned the motion picture in my last video. The motion picture is my favorite Star Trek film, more so than The Wrath of Khan. As good as The Wrath of Khan is, the motion picture is about strange new life. And it emphasizes Starfleet, or at least the Enterprise, as exploring the frontier. They are explorers, and they are astronauts exploring space. Yes, they are a military. And yes, Wrath of Khan, and also, I would say, Nicholas Meyer's other Star Trek film, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, they emphasize that this is the military. They are a space navy. And I love that aspect of it as well. But I like the exploration, and I like that they are also astronauts. And at the end of the novel, when the Romulans show up and there's a bit of a conflict, you see how the Romulans they might not care so much about Strange New Life and respecting, even though the situation is dangerous, we still have to respect life. And you will see that, and that's a key aspect of Star Trek that this novel just nails. So I think that's all I'll say about this. It's not going to be the best science fiction you've ever read, but it's a numbered Star Trek book. It's not supposed to be that. If you like Star Trek and if you like horror, as I do, you will enjoy this. So you'll get some enjoyment of that. So I recommend it. If you're looking for something to read during this summer, I recommend it. So I think that's all I'll say for now about it. I mentioned in a couple other videos, I will also be participating in June on the Range. I will probably read a Western before I read another Star Trek book. I'm slowly getting through, I'm not a fast reader. I'm slowly getting through a history book on King Philip's War. So once I finish that, I'll make a video on it. I'm having a little bit of trouble with it, but it's interesting, so I'd like to talk about it. And then after that, I will talk about a Western, and then I will get back into Star Trek. But that's all for now. Thank you.